All right. I have some Western astrology for you today, and it's the points of exaltation, home, detriment, and fall for each of these planets and celestial bodies, right? In astrology. So when you got an exaltation point, that is the best sign to have the planet in, right? The planet works really well in that type of energy, the best in that type of energy. But you can also it's a blessing and a curse. Some people think some people with these places might be like, oh well, I have that exaltation point and it don't seem easy for me. But it comes with like also the mindset behind it. If you think it's overwhelming, which it could be overwhelming too, having exaltation, an exalted planet in like any of your placements, right? It can be overwhelming, but for the most part, it actually makes it easier depending on where you have it. Now, when you have a home placement, that makes it easy too. You got a sign or a planet in the sign that it is ruled by, right? That's basically what the home placement is. The planet um, is ruled by these signs, right? And it's in that placement, right? I'll get into those in a minute. Then you have detriment. Detriment is opposite of home, so it's away from home. You can call that an away planet. So when it's here, when a planet's away in an away sign, that means there's challenges, there's struggles, but still manageable. Trust me, I have some away planets in my chart, but it's still manageable, right? Not easy, still manageable, but definitely not the easiest, placement to have, right? And then you have the fall placement. That's like basically the worst, spot you can have your planet in, right? But with that, because you gotta know that everything has good and bad in it. So the fall, yes, it's the worst placement to place to have that, right? But there's also blessings there. You learn things that other people never learn because they never had to go through that kind of struggle, and they never will go through that kind of struggle. But you know it because you have a planet in that fall placement. So I'll let you know what it is for each planet, like which sign is exalted, home, away, or at a fall. So when it comes to the sun is exalted in Aries. Aries, the sun is rising in Aries. It's like the sun rising in the morning time, Aries, right? Boom. And like you just know it's getting hotter, it's getting hotter. It's just, it's only getting hotter, it's only going up from there. So Aries rules is exalted. The sun's exalted in Aries. It's home in Leo. Leo's fixed fire. It's ruled by the sun. Leo is ruled by the sun. That's its rulership. The home placement is basically the sign's rulership. Um, the planet that rules that sign. So when you have Leo in your sun sign, you have a pretty good sun sign. Um, it's a detriment in Aquarius then. And to let you know, home and away are basically like if you have a home planet in Leo, the away planet's gonna have to be Aquarius. They're opposites, right? So the away planet's gonna be Aquarius. So if you have Aquarius sun, you know, you got kind of have some like struggles a little bit with like your identity, ego, a little bit, right? People don't see it in good taste sometimes, but it's not the worst to have. It ain't the worst. We're in the age of Aquarius, so it's not the worst to have. But you still come with some struggles, right? Now the fall of the sun is in Libra, because in Libra, that's when the sun's going to sleep. It's still there, but it's not visible, and you gotta like manage with that. And with Libra, you know how they're like more people pleasing, a people pleasing kind of sign, and some of them may struggle to like, sometimes they struggle to know what they want, actually know what they want, because they talk to people too much. And then the people decide where they go, sway where they go. So certain Libras, you know, they have that fall, and they might feel like they're not fulfilled enough because they do listen to people too much and what they suggest, you know, and they take suggestions from others too much. You know, that's the fall of the sun. Now, the exaltation point of the moon is in Taurus. Taurus is the exaltation point of the moon. Um, you know, they understand why they're feeling that type of way. And this is the moon specifically, Taurus moon, not sun, moon. Exaltation point, the highest point of the moon is in Taurus. Able to manage their emotions, know why they feel the way they do, still like accept that they have those emotions, accept they have the emotions. That's what these people do. They accept they feel these negative emotions and why they feel them. And they ain't like running from it or trying to act like they don't exist. They understand why they are the way they are, you know, and how their, you know, emotions will negatively affect or positively affect other people. You know, they know this shit. That's why Taurus is exalted in the moon. So if you have Taurus moon, you actually are mature, you know, than other people may give you credit for. You got Cancer moon. Cancer moon, that is the home placement of the moon, is in Cancer. You know, these people are intuitive, right? They understand their emotions too. They get emotional, you know, but that's part of life. You know, they have higher EQs than other people, right? That's what these people have. You know, and so does Taurus moon. Now, the fall of the moon is in Capricorn. Capricorn tries to turn off the emotions, tries to stay away from shit like that, right? But people with Capricorn moon, you gotta understand that in doing that, you're still getting emotional. So basically, Capricorn moon sees things for what they actually are, and they try not to, like, you know, get like too emotional about what they see or anything. Like, this is the facts and this is what they are. But then when other people don't accept those facts that you see about a situation, you get emotional because they don't see the truth. They don't see what's really going on. And you get emotional from that, you know. But you people try to act like you don't have emotions and that, you know, I'm not getting emotional. You're the one getting emotional because you ain't seeing it for what it is. But you, and not trying to understand that you also get emotional, which you do. That's why it's a detriment. And then the fall is in Scorpio. Scorpio is known to be a toxic sign. And when you have Scorpio moon, you can become very toxic, very, you know, aggressive and, you know, um, vindictive. I knew somebody with this placement. Basically, you know, Scorpio moon gets quiet. Oh boy, you know, they're plotting some shit on you. You know, Scorpio suns too, but the moon, they'll do that shit. They'll be, you know, that type of person that does shit like that. And then plot against you and shit you won't even know. You know, they're intuitive too, but they're also, you know, they watch people's intentions and then they're like, you know, can I really trust people and shit like that? You know, and that's a problem, right? You know, because they want that deeper connection with people, but then they're also closed off to like even, you know, receive that when they want it or when they need it. Now, Mercury is exalted in Aquarius. Mercury is exalted in Aquarius. Aquarius is the type to think outside the box or, you know, question why the box even exists in the first place. And that's why they, you know, when you have a Mercury in Aquarius, and I do know people with Mercury in Aquarius is, um, you know, they don't accept shit at face value necessarily. They don't. They take the information that they know and they, you know, question it still. You know, you know, they're more, um, you know, they think about the future. They're forward thinking types. You know, and then the home placement for it is in Virgo or Gemini. So if you have Mercury in Virgo or Gemini, you also have a great, you know, thinking capacity and communicative skills as well, because Mercury has to deal with that. And if you have those placements there, you talk well and you think well. You know, you think about shit, you know, thoroughly, deeply. You know, you do your research and all that shit, right? And it doesn't matter, like, if you have these Mercury placements, you have great, thinking process and communicating skills. Now, it's detriment or away in Pisces and Sagittarius. So if you have Pisces, Sagittarius, right, or in Sagittarius, you might come off as like people might need to like, you know, you might need to explain more. But like for you, since you're like more of an emotional or more just about expressing yourself, not necessarily, and like you like to emphasize points, you know, and like sometimes you hope people can just get it without you having to say so much. If you're like a Pisces Mercury, right? Like you should just understand. I shouldn't have to tell you too much. You should be able to read between the lines. You got higher EQ. These animals do. You think more in a creative fashion, whereas these people are good at like reading books and dealing with real numbers and shit like that. Um, and it's not like that for these people. Then the fall is in Leo. The fall is in Leo. Leo has the egotistical mindset. Leo's also one that's ruled by um, more creative type of aspect. So they're more fun, and like they think more towards fun. So fun's not necessarily they're not thinking things through all the way. If it's something that'll get people riled up, if it's something that'll get people's attention, that's all that matters to them, right? I don't have to be Einstein about this shit. I don't have to necessarily have a plan mapped out. And it ain't like these people don't plan things out. They do. They have a certain way of thinking. It's a fixed mindset of thinking, but they ain't thinking too detailedly about things. They ain't like getting too like overwhelmed by what they're doing. Like Virgos and Geminis, they ain't doing all that. But they this is what they do. They befriend people like that, and they like let them know here and there that they appreciate them and keep them around and shit because they understand that those people are valuable in their grand scheme of whatever they got going on in their minds, whatever they're trying to build or whatever. But it's the fall of Mercury, so they're not the smartest, but they still clever in other things. Venus wise, Venus is exaltation point is in Pisces. Pisces is a romantic type. But when you have it in Venus and Pisces, those people are the ones who like go above and beyond for like love. They fall deeply in love. They when they love somebody, they only see their good side. They don't see the bad side, or they convince themselves that the toxic thing or the bad shit about this person don't really matter. They still want to be around this person. They won't be hearing it from these people and these people. They still like what they like. Good or bad. The toxic shit they just glance over it. And that's Venus. The planet of love and affection, right? Attraction, right? These people have that about them too. They are able to pull people in. Very magnetic types. But then you have the home placements, which are in Taurus and Libra. Taurus and Libra are the home placements of Venus. So if you have Taurus and Venus or Libra and Venus, you got a pretty good um, life as far as like building connections in life goes. Whether that be through how you are and what you do. You're not really trying to like you do what you do, and you don't go out of your way to fuck with people. That's very much Taurus energy. Um, and you mind your business, and you like help people out too. That's part of like Taurus and Venus archetype, right? Now, the Libra and Venus archetype, they're more like conversationalists, and they like speak politely, calm, graciously. You make people feel like they're heard, you know, and that's part of the Venus energy. That's why they're the home placement for Venus. When it comes to the away placement or the detriment planets, that would be or the signs that would be Aries and Scorpio. Aries and Scorpio are more Mars. They don't like slow shit that much. Um, they can't sit still. These guys these females can't sit still. They must be always doing something else, looking for newness. You know, they need that passion. They need that, you know, like they need that energy. They need to sense it in you. If you're like, you know, if you're like, if Scorpio, like they're the type to like, you know you got that in you, even if you're like not loud about it. Aries needs you to be like Aries and Venus needs you to be loud about that shit. You know, say that shit. Just be loud. You know, let them know type shit. You know, and if you can't do that, or you can only do that for a little bit of time, they have to move on because for them they're just like they need that like they always gotta be on the move. They can never like sit still and do other things. It's just how these people are. And there's nothing wrong with that. You still have all those relationships that be in, and you have, those experiences you learn from, these type of people I more so, get along with as opposed to these people, you learn that kind of thing. And then the fall is in Virgo. Virgo is the fall because Virgo thinks too seriously in the relationship. And like you do have to take that shit seriously. That's not the problem. The problem is you're doing it like you're trying to like micromanage every single day, every single minute. You know, it's like you're trying to like turn this person into, you're perfect, whatever, and that's not what you're supposed to do if you have Venus in Virgo. So these people, might not even think they're, cut out for relationships because people just can't meet their criteria, right? They just can't, meet it, meet those standards. They have high standards. Now, when it comes to Mars, the planet of action, Capricorn is the exaltation point of this planet. Capricorn is, a sign that sees things for what they are, and they act in the present moment. There's always something that can be done, and they move with sense of urgency. And they don't let bullshit get them down. They know how to read through bullshit. This ain't gonna help me build. I'm not listening to it. We have to do this, and we stick to this. Um, I can even help manage other people and get them and help them get to where they want to be. Because they know the real practical steps that you should take to get to your goals. And like, the wiser, Capricorns who have lived through and done many things, because these people can't sit still either. They can't sit idly by. They gotta work. And that's where they feel home at. You know, if they're sitting idly by for too long, they're just like they don't feel right. They might even become pessimistic. And like they see reality too, so they'll let you know what's the shit you don't want to hear. But then they're like, but we can work through it, and we can make it happen. But it's gonna take this long to do it, and you're gonna have to like really grind. They're great managers and other things, and people who have the Mars in Capricorn are like that too. So they could be any sign with Mars in Capricorn, and they got guts like that too, and they're fighters as well. So we got Aries and Scorpio as the home placement. Now these people are known to be fighters, right? People who know astrology and other things a little bit know that these people can be very, about that life. If you say something sideways to them, they're more emotional and like expressive types. So they will, they'll be on your shit, quick if you like tick them off the wrong way. They don't waste any time. They let you know, or they don't let you know, and you still know because these people, let you know by, they'll do something to you, and you could be any person with this. These people have guts. They're willing to do risky things. You know, they like challenges too, very Mars type thing. So when it comes to the detriment or the way side of Mars, that is Taurus and Libra. Taurus and Libra are a bit slower, and they are. We ain't gonna act like they ain't. But like when they do get to doing things and they like know how they want to attack something, because they like plan things out and shit too. Um, they really delve into they dive into their heart a little more, so they like to be a little more patient. They like to ask other people and see where and what they have done and other things. And then from all this information they've gathered, and then like how they feel about a situation, if they can, actually execute it or not, once they actually, decide to. And see, Mars is not a slow planet. It's not. Now it's slow as far as how long it takes to go around the sun, but as far as in astrology, it's not one of those slow planets. Um, and Libra and Taurus tend to be slower about shit. Doesn't mean they don't execute their plans and other things. Like, I have Libra and Mars myself, but my Mars is also in the 10th house, so I know I'm gonna become successful one day. It just takes time and a little bit of planning, you know, and not second guessing. When you have like Libra there, and when you have Taurus there, it's not so much second guessing. It's the stubbornness that comes with Taurus, right? So like you're like set on this thing, but sometimes when you're set on something, you might have to get advice from some other people. You might have to tweak your plans a little bit, not completely, but a little bit. But you'll figure it out and you'll get through it. Now, when it comes to Cancer Mars is ruled by their emotions, and their emotions tied to the people they love, and basically the people they love and care for really influence how they move. So it's like they have bad, on bad terms with their family, or if they said something to them and they like really take it, to heart, or whatever, they start questioning how they move, if they're doing enough, if they're not doing enough, um, you know, they could get down. They can become very down, and they can become very, unproductive when they want to be productive for the ones they care for and other things. But then their emotions can sometimes get the better of them, and then they ain't moving right. They seem to be overcome by shit too much. It's too much. My advice is get in some water, take a bath, buddy, take a shower. You'll feel better. And that's for you Cancer and Mars people. You'll feel a lot better if you do shit like that. Jupiter comes in with the exaltation port being in Cancer. Cancer being one of those more emotional signs. If you have Cancer and Jupiter, you'll come to find out that you gain a lot of wisdom through life. You become wiser. You grow from things. You're a person who has experienced good and bad emotions, because you allow yourself to want to understand other people, which comes with Jupiter energy. People who have good Jupiter placements try to understand people, right? And you're always trying to understand other people, your loved ones, the people you care about, and then like you learn about people through that, and you can then impart great knowledge onto other people, and all the friends and relationships that didn't work, you still figure there's something that can be learned from everything, that kind of thing. People who have Cancer in Jupiter and Cancer. And now the home placement of Jupiter is in Sagittarius and Pisces. Sagittarius and Pisces, Sagittarius is the planet, or the sign of the adventure, right? Jupiter is a planet of expansion, growth, experience. Sagittarius likes to do things. They are very confident about what they want to do, and they won't let anything slow them down. I might be dumb, I might be not the best, but I'm gonna try it. I cannot not try. I have to try with the best of my abilities. And then when you try and you learn, you then have more confidence because you've done that before. And then when it happens again, you're like, yeah, oh yeah, I've done this before. And you're very energetic about it. And that's confidence, right? You're confident because you have done it before, and it's just, you know what you can do. Or you're the other way about it, and you're like, oh man, I can do that, but, I'm not sure you want me to, be the one to, teach you that or anything, because I'm not the best at this kind of thing. And I can do it, but you know. Pisces is, very similar in that they want to, be like that. They're a little bit ballsy too if they have this placement, right? So they're willing to, try new things, delve into things that maybe they shouldn't. I like to say Pisces, if you got this, you try to like understand people with this placement. Like I said, Jupiter is also a planet of understanding people, right? Others, right? Because that's a part of the experience, and you try to do that. But then sometimes, again, like Cancer, you get the negative aspects of that. But you're still like a little bit more. I don't want to say you're more positive in Cancer, but it seems as though you are because you lean into your other planet that's also ruled by. So like you can see some positives in the negatives and shit like that. Now when it comes to Gemini and Virgo being the away planet here, you're seeing shit to like 3D or to what you see with the naked eye. So I've read in this book, I've heard from these experts, that's not practical enough, or that's not logical enough. So you're gonna allow that to basically kind of slow you down. Not slow you down, but like you basically would tell yourself not to do something just because of what these things say and what other people have done that are experts, and you won't experience your own life because of this, and you want to like kind of follow other people's like logic and learning a bit too much, right? If it's not said by somebody who's reputable, you know sound enough, you know not so risque. If you have Jupiter and this sun, now you still learn though, because what the lesson is here is sometimes you just gotta like not think too much about shit. You can still think things through, but you don't let the negatives get in the way of the like main picture. You want to accomplish this, but then you're gonna tell yourself you don't want to do this because X, Y, and Z is this is going on, and no. You gotta just jump right in sometimes. That's what Jupiter tells you. Still be smart and analytical about things, but don't allow that to cause you to overthink and second guess yourself. Capricorn is the Dutch or the fall here because Capricorn is so you know practical and real that like Jupiter can sometimes be a bit delusional. They're so optimistic. People who have true Jupiterian energy can be somewhat delusional, and to these people, they're like they just can't do delusion at all. Like they can't do like these people have a hard time with imagination, with any of that. They can't. Some of these people look at like shit like anime, and they're just like they just get pissed off. They just get like this is not practical. Like there's nothing from this that you can take. You can't take anything from this and apply it to the real world. That's these kind of people. Yeah. And to some degree they're right, but then you are also narrowing your horizon. And with Jupiter energy, you want to broaden your horizon, right? You want to expand outwardly. You don't want to narrow the view. And that's why the fall's in Capricorn. Now, when it comes to Saturn, Libra is an exaltation of Saturn. Um, so Libra is a sign that likes to keep the peace, likes to uphold justice. They have a sense of justice. When people come together and agree upon these rules, um, as this is what people should follow. These are the people who go out and enforce that. Like these are the type of people who are like would enforce the rules that are in the rule books for anything, any kind of laws of the land, any kind of laws or rules of their own house. They like really not fucking playing games with that shit, y'all. These people, and like I know it's older people who have this placement. Older people, being people in like their 50s and 60s, right? They have this placement. You know, they don't let anything slide. It's like you have to have X, Y, and Z to do this, then you have to have X, Y, and Z to do this. There's no exceptions to these rules. And that's them also being fair. They wouldn't let another type of person, get by and other things. Um, now some people, might be more hypocritical than others, but for the most part, these people do like to uphold the law and their own sense of justice and the sense of justice of humanity as a whole. Now the home placement for Saturn's in Capricorn and Aquarius. Now these people get like that too, and they ain't see. But the thing with these people is they're not necessarily like trying to be seen as those guys and females that do shit like that. You either know or you don't know, but I'm gonna like uphold what I know, what real knowledge, what you really need to understand about the situation. I'm gonna stay disciplined. I'm gonna instill that in other people, um, because you need that in life. Um, they see things for what they are though, and they do. They don't let their emotions rule them too much. They can sit down and be like, these are the actions I need to take. These are the people I need to talk to. I cannot talk to these type of people. I need to talk to these type of people to get things moving, to help myself out of this situation. Creating real plans, not fake plans. Real details, um, not fake shit. Because I like to say Saturn's a planet of realism as well. When life hits these people with a ton of bricks, they're like, I already expected that. I already knew that. I already knew life wasn't all happy and fun and other things. I actually got a plan for myself where I'm working to make myself better. I'm staying away from this kind of shit. I'm more so focused towards real knowledge and not fake knowledge, and not entertaining that shit too much, like foolishness. But the reason that Libra is the exaltation point, at least to me, is like these people who have Libra in the exaltation point, they are trying to like they let you know like I'm that person that upholds these laws and that the justice here. I'm the person that enforces that. I do that. Whereas these people they do it and it's like natural to them to do it too, but they're not like necessarily barking at you like 24/7, or looking for that shit 24. So they more so like they can set boundaries for themselves as well, and when it needs when it's necessary to get in someone's ass and bring them down to earth, you know, and give them the real what the situation is for them. These people do that. Now the people who have detriment or weight, now be Cancer and Leo, Cancer and Leo and Saturn. So these people might not accept reality for what it is, and they might try to fall back on their emotions, be emotional in certain situations in life, and then they find it hard to get out of situations. But this is what I know about these people. If they have Cancer and Leo, right? They might not be able to figure shit out for themselves, but they find people who can help them along in their life. And what I mean by that is, make sure they're stable, make sure they're, questioning things, right? Seeing things from a more realistic perspective, that kind of thing. Not always, being too imaginative and, creativity's cool and all that's great, but, sometimes you gotta set that shit aside and be like, am I really locked in on what I gotta do? Or am I having too much fun? Or am I giving my energy to people too much and not focused on where I can, become secure and stable? And these people want that too, like Leo and Cancer and in Saturn, they want that, and they do, but they can get too emotional, too expressive about themselves, and sometimes it ain't about that. It's just follow what you're supposed to follow, do what you're supposed to do. Like don't go out of your way to like get other people riled up, or put your shit on other people too much, that kind of thing. Carry your own weight kind of shit. Now Aries is the fall of Saturn, and Aries is in Saturn right now. You don't have the ability to sit still basically with this placement, and like really sit down and like manage and look at shit for what it is, and be like, I have to do this to ascend to this position at work, or I have to do this to get this kind of life that I want, you know. And there's people who are a little bit older than me who have their Saturn return going on right now, and they're going through it right now. I know they're going through it right now. They're going through it, and it's not that easy for them. And I wanted them to know that I don't get it because I don't have that placement, but I know that you'll probably make it out the other side, because Aries is also a planet that can it looks towards the future. Remember that, and that's a good thing to have. You need that. Look towards the future, not with just the like energy aspect of things. The future is great, or whatever. Or right now my situation sucks so bad that I don't see the future as that bright anymore, and it's actually pissing me off what my situations do. Don't let that move you any kind of way, shake you and shit too much, because you can use that energy to like actually prepare yourself forward much faster too, and then you can actually get to that point you want in life, whatever kind of career, house, relationships, whatever the fuck you want. And you just gotta lock in for some time, lock in on what you really gotta do, maybe cut some people off and other things, maybe not go out and party so much, and when you do that, that's when you see it. And then Aries is a fire planet, so guess what? Things do happen faster for those kind of people. I'd say, bad things can happen with that too, much quicker too. But it's all about the mindset, and then how you, see things. Are you seeing things more from like, I want to do this now, and I don't have, I can't, I just can't, wait. When reality's telling me I have to wait a little bit, and I hate delays too, right? I do. But sometimes you got to do that because it's a preparation for what's to come. And then when it does hit, it's like just that much more sweeter, that much more enjoyable. Now, when it comes to Uranus, Uranus, as people call it, exaltation points in Scorpio. Uranus has to do with unpredictability, has to do with individuality, and has to do with those kind of topics: unpredictability, originality, and individualism. And see, Scorpio being here, Scorpio, Uranus. Yeah, things in your life would definitely get hectic sometimes because of who you are. And then some people, since it is Scorpion energy, people might be like, a little bit like, mysterious about you. And like, depending on what house it's in, right, they might question you, or be like drawn to you, and like, how is this person's relationships with these people, or how is he in his private life, or how is it really on the surface, in his like public life, how is it, with the, and it's like that can present like some like unwanted attention and shit like that. People may see you as a bit weird, strange, and that comes with this type of energy. Then when you have it in the home placement, Aries or Aquarius. Aquarius is the home placement for Uranus. I have this placement, and people around my age have this placement. Um, it can turn you into a very, innovative type of thinker, and you're thinking outside the box about some shit. But also you could be unconventional about some things. I know I have my Uranus in the second house, so like the way I, value things, the way I obtain money, might not be what you think and what society or the vast majority of people seen as whatever, right? But I'm doing me, and I have to lean into that because that's what I have. And people with displacement, tend to value some quirkiness, some people who like think outside the box and shit. Other people who think outside the box, and they try to like think for themselves a little more, be a little more original than other people. So they don't care if like people like talk down on them and other things because they ain't doing what other people do. Because they gotta do them and they gotta be original, as original as they can and as themselves as they can, authentic. Now, when it comes to Uranus being a detriment, that would be in Leo. So these people, they they will do more of like they don't like that shit. They don't like the people being like sideways about shit. They would try to like, okay, people don't like this, but people would like me more if I like leaned into like what people like more. And like they kind of like shy away from some authenticity. These people with Uranus in Leo, so and like they don't want to be seen as weird so much. They want to be seen as like a person that people like gravitate towards and like to they like to be seen by people a little more in a good light and not a bad light, and they want to like keep it that way because it's Leo there. So when it comes to Uranus in that energy, it's the not the fall, but it's a detriment. It's a way. Now it's detriment in Taurus because Taurus and Uranus also has to do with change and sudden change, right? Unpredictable change. And Taurus likes shit a certain way. When shit changes quickly or out of sorts, these people could definitely get out of sorts. People who have Taurus in Uranus, they're like, well, damn, I don't like this. I don't like when shit goes. Unpredictable things happen. I like living my life a certain way, doing it my way, and then it hits them, and then they're forced to change, and it's just, it's rough, really rough. And I'm a Taurus myself, so I know that it's rough. But like other people who have it in these placements, and then even more Taurus placements or other fixed placements, um, it could hit them even harder than me. Um, because I do have like Uranus and Aquarius, but these people who have Uranus and Taurus, they might have it tough when it comes to like adapting to change and maybe seeing things. They might be a little more closed-minded as well. Maybe a little bit, and then some more than others depending on what house it's in and what their other placements are. But Neptune, the exaltation points in Leo. Leo, they have the ability to like make shit, fun and exciting, right? For other people, their friends and other things. So like if you have Neptune in Leo, they try to do that. They have that ability to do shit too, right? Neptune and Leo types of people, and you could be any sign with this placement, right? And I'm trying to think. I have okay. Well, these people try to be fun and other things, and it's like not necessarily a they basically come in a situation where it's like very tragic, very sad, and they like try to liven the mood, and that's where they like shine the most when they do shit like that. People can be down in their friend group or in their family, and they just know how to try to like get the vibes back up, get people's spirits up again, you know, and it's like steering them away from like what's actually going on and needs addressed. But in that like small moment of time, it's just fun, and they can like get these people to not think so negatively about the situation they're in, that kind of thing. And that's why Leo's the exaltation point. Now the home placement's in Pisces. Pisces, is co-ruled by Jupiter and Neptune, and they also have the ability to do that too. They're very creative, and they know how to like convince themselves and other people that a situation is better than what it actually is. Um, and but like when they do that, it works for them. they lean into that shit hard enough, it works for them. And they can get themselves out of the situation, and they do that again because they want to be positive about the situation, not negative about it. So somebody who has like more real or like earthly type of vibes, or you know more windy type of vibe might not like that shit so much, because their minds don't work like that. But they do it so they can cope with what's going on. Now sometimes it don't work to their benefit, and sometimes they do get lost, and they shit gets worse for them when they do this. But sometimes it actually does help them out. Lean into their creative bag, and it helps them make money. It helps them meet people who are similar and um, like those type of things. And when it comes to the detriment um, of this is in Virgo. Virgo likes to analyze shit too much. When they analyze shit, they basically can dismantle an illusion. So like they themselves would not become delusional, right? If they're the ones dismantling somebody else's illusion. So like a person who has this placement would not like get swayed by like delusions. Oh, you live in this fantasy world and you believe this and that, and your relationships are this way, and your job is this, and everything will be great as long as this and that happens. But and then they break down like where shit falls apart, and they're very like analytical about the whole damn thing. They don't allow themselves to become delusional. And like when it comes to Neptune energy, you gotta be a little bit delusional, you gotta be a little bit imaginative. That's what this planet signifies, right? But these people can't allow themselves to do it, so it's a detriment. And then the fall is in Aquarius, because Aquarius can also think too much, and then they're more like of an extrovert than Virgo is, so they're emphasizing like why this shit is not so practical or logical. Why the fuck would you follow this kind of thing? It don't make sense. And sometimes it's not supposed to make sense. And that's the crazy thing about being human. And these people just sometimes they can't get it. And I have Neptune in Aquarius as well. And there's certain things that I'm like, I just don't like. And like, but like when I say these things, I know what it's like to have that place. And and what these people are saying ain't wrong. But those people who have like other placements, like Leo or Pisces, they're like, oh, but they like to be comfortable in that delusion, and like I understand they like to be comfortable in that delusion, but for me, that's not what it really is. And there's certain things in life that get me like that myself, actually, where I'm like, damn, like why the fuck don't people see the like fucked up parts of this or that? And if you know me outside of this YouTube channel, if you get to know me, you'll find out what I mean by that. But then when it comes to Pluto, which is our last planet on the list, we have Aries as its exaltation point. Aries is our Pluto's the furthest planet away, or now it's considered a dwarf planet. But I remember when Pluto was considered a planet. It became a dwarf planet when I was a child. But anywho, Aries is the exaltation point of Pluto. Aries is a person that likes change. Actually, once like they've experienced something and then it's like not so like new, or they don't feel that passion anymore, they gotta move to something else, and they gotta change, they gotta evolve, they gotta they got, and they say that shit too, these people with that. But like the people, like there's like people like, because like Jupiter or Pluto's a generational planet, so I'm trying to think of which generation that was. It was a generation a long time ago. Like these people don't even like walk the earth anymore, but they're coming like back soon, because, or not those people specifically, but there'll be a new generation. Not these kids running around, but the like if I have kids in the future, they'll have this type of energy, and they'll be very much like that. You know, extra, once they're done with something, they're done with it, they gotta get to the next thing and the next thing. And it ain't like they don't learn or transform from their experiences, good and bad, both. And it's easy, but it's also not, because then we have Pluto and Scorpio. A lot of millennials have this placement. They got Scorpio and Pluto, so they got a good home placement here. You know, they go through a lot of transformations in life. Death in life. They understand that you can't be the same from the time you're like a child to the time you're an adult. Some people try to be more delusional and trick themselves on other things, but deep down they know that they've changed and they have to change, and they do, and they adapt, and they get it done. And it's not always an easy process, but it happens, and they basically they accept it too. At some point they accept it, and they're like, yeah, I gotta change. I gotta do this. I gotta evolve. It ain't gonna be easy, but at the other end, shit, yeah. and some of these people who are millennials watching this video know what I'm talking about. Now, when it comes to Pluto being in Taurus, these people can't, or they struggle with doing that. They struggle with um, transformation. They like to, like, if something's good, right? They don't want it to leave. They don't want it to go away. They'll do anything in their power to keep certain things the same. And you can to some degree, but then at some point it's change still happens, and then these people, it's hard for them. It's hard for them, harder than people who have Aries and Scorpio, because these people are also co-ruled by Mars, so they also are always on the move and always doing that shit. But these people like to sometimes sit back and enjoy life, in a more slower manner. And sometimes life, demands of you to move and be more, quick about shit. And these people don't like that, sudden changes, and maybe some relationships that you thought, would go on, whatever. And they might be able to even get away from that, but then there's a part of them that's still like, damn, I wish that shit would have worked out, and then the falls in Libra. I know Generation X has a lot of this energy, right? The Pluto and Libra energy. These people, I get the Pluto, the relationships really have them transform. The relationships they've been in. So I know people from that generation. I just do, right? My parents, and then people around their age. And they oh, well, I was in a relationship with this girl, and this happened, and I had kids with her, and then I married this girl, and this happened, and now they're 50 something, and they got white hair, and I'm like, ooh, I learned lessons from them and their stories. Don't get married and other things, man, if you can't, handle that shit, They're I was 20, and I got married to this girl, and then when I was in my 30s, I got married to this girl, and they, helped me out here, but or they were that bitch really ran me through the mud, or that man really, did this to me, and I wasn't the same afterwards, and when they, they get in their relationships and they're quick to find that shit, and then when shit goes wrong, it's I mean, by now they probably understand now, because most of these people are 50s, and that is you're of wisdom, you're of the age of wisdom now, so you understand if I fuck with that type of bitch, it's probably gonna end up like this. If I fuck with this kind of guy, it's probably gonna end up like this. But earlier on, they were they would struggle, and then it would be hard for them to transform and get past some shit. They take what they had from that relationship into the next fucking relationship, because Libra has to deal with relationships, and I know this shit is true. So I really gotta mind myself around some of these individuals, and I employ you to do the same thing. Um, uh, for me and y'all, this is what it is. This is the exaltation points, the home planets, the awake planets, and the fall planets. And again, there's good and bad in all this shit. An exaltation point doesn't mean you automatically have it easy. It can, though. It really can. It can mean you have it easy in that specific area. But then it could also, and it's a mindset thing too. So you can be overwhelmed that you have people coming to you too much, or you have all these relationships, or you're such a smart person that damn, I have nobody to challenge me on some shit. I just feel like I'm too smart for these people, you know. And that might be the case, but you gotta lean into like the positive aspect of that. Not think so negatively about things. Home placement, same thing. When you have the fall or detriment, you know, yeah, but then what those other people don't know about that when you have a detriment, and then you're better able to like navigate and help other people out who may have fall or detriment planets too. You know, those people, shit comes easier for them in that aspect of life. But then for you, you have to work a little harder. But with that, you gain a certain wisdom and work ethic that they just don't got because they never had to go through it like that. For them, it was just second nature and easy, came to them easy. But for you, you had to actually learn and work harder for it. But that's what it is, man. The exaltation points, the home, the way, and the fall of every planet. But let me know what you think in the comments. Let me know, if you have any of these, and be cool, calm,